Okay, so this is 6th grade social studies. We are continuing on with chapter 3.2, Mesopotamian Society, on Explore, page 4. We've already read the merchants in class, but we'll do it again. As we see, we have that already answered here. But since we're here, let's read it anyways. The working class and the enslaved people. What was life like for the lower classes in Mesopotamia? Even the working classes in Mesopotamia were divided. Merchants, artisans, and scribes held a higher and more powerful place in society than the farmers did. Merchants. Mesopotamia became a prosperous civilization because of its vibrant trade. Merchants in the Mesopotamian city-states traded with each other and with other ancient civilizations, as we noted here. Mesopotamian city-states were located midway between the city-states of the Indus River Valley to the east of the Egyptian kingdom known to the west. Goods or products from both of these civilizations passed through Mesopotamia on their way to other lands. The taxes on traded goods enriched the city-states. The profits from the traded goods were essential to the prosperity of the kingdom. Artisans and scribes. Artisans, or craft people, specialized in producing particular goods. Mesopotamia had bakers, ironworkers, potters, and weavers. As Mesopotamians developed their writing system, known as cuneiform, scribes, or public writers, became important members of society. So over here, we have artisans and scribes. Your answer as to what artisans and scribes were is right here. Below that is farmers. Peasants farmed the land surrounding the cities and sold their surplus food to people living in the cities. Farmers also gave a certain amount of their crops to the king and priests. In return, the king helped to organize the construction and maintenance of irrigation and to protect the farms. Priests interceded with the gods to ensure good harvests. Because farmers were able to ensure a stable food supply, other Mesopotamians were able to focus on making crafts, defending their city-state, and trading with other civilizations. So for farmers, I would definitely look here for your answer. And enslaved people. Enslaved people were at the bottom of the social pyramid. Individuals could become enslaved in several different ways. Some enslaved people were prisoners who had been captured during a war. Some criminals were ordered into slavery as a punishment for their crimes. Other people became enslaved when they fell into debt. Some enslaved people were able to work their way out of slavery, but others remained enslaved for their entire life. On to page 5, the role of women. The role of women, what status did women have in Mesopotamian society? We'll be focusing on questions 4 and 5 for here. In addition to the division among classes, Mesopotamian society was also divided in another way. It was a patriarchal society. In a patriarchal society, men have power in matters of government as well as family. Mesopotamian men made up most of the religious and political leadership. Men also made household decisions from what work would be done to who would marry whom. Women's responsibilities. Women's roles in society were strictly defined as daughter or wife and mother. Women usually did not learn to read or write. Instead, girls were prepared for their future roles as wives and mothers. Women were taught how to spin fibers into yarns, to weave, to make fabrics for clothing. They learned how to make bread and other foods. Sometimes these tasks could lead to work outside of the home, such as becoming a baker or working in a tavern. Women also worked as midwives, or trained individuals who assist women during labor and childbirth. For what did women do in Mesopotamian society, I would use this section. Women and law. Mesopotamian law supported the authority of fathers and husbands over their daughters and wives. For example, fathers arranged for their daughters to be married shortly after puberty. The daughter's family usually received money or gifts known as a dowry from the groom and his family. Once a woman was promised as a bride, she was viewed as a member of the new family, even if the wedding did not yet take place. In this latter case, she instead might marry one of the groom's brothers or another male relative. Men had the right to abandon their wives. However, Women who abandoned their husbands could be punished severely. Although the majority of the power was given to men, women did have a few rights. Some mistreated wives could leave their husbands and return to their fathers' houses without giving up their dowry. Women could also own property. Some women worked as artisans, and a few women even became scribes or priestesses. Noble women were taught how to read and write. Some worked in the government. Priestesses, like priests, were thought to have a special connection to the gods. One woman named Enheduanna was the daughter of King Sargon. She was a princess and a priestess, and later Mesopotamian artwork depicted her as the wife of the moon god Nana. She also wrote many poems. So for what rights did women have in Mesopotamian society? You would want to focus mostly here, but some here as well. Page 6, Conquering Mesopotamia. Why was Mesopotamia a prized land? The land between the Tigris and Euphrates River was very fertile and good for farming. The city-states in the region created irrigation systems to bring water to the land. Active trade along the rivers further enriched the city-states. All of these resources made Mesopotamia a desirable place for people to live and a valuable land for leaders to conquer and rule. The earliest group of city-states that developed between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers was called Sumer. Each city-state in Sumer was independent. The king of a city-state ruled over the city and the farmland that surrounded it. The Sumerian city-states were connected by a common culture and by trade. Despite these common connections, the city-states sometimes fought each other as well as outside forces in order to gain control of more land and resources. From the Akkadians to the Babylonians to the Assyrians, a series of empires ruled Mesopotamia. Sometimes these empires expanded from one of the city-states. Other times, outside people invaded Mesopotamia and claimed its riches. This is a preamble to answering number 6, which we will find the answers to on the next couple pages. Now on to page 7, a series of empires, 2300 to 1595 BCE. Who were the first rulers to unite Mesopotamia? The history of Mesopotamia is marked by 4 great empires. In between one empire's rule and the next, there was a time of disorganization before another leader conquered the region. How did these empires come into power? Akkadian Empire. Pay attention. So we have where we're looking for our first 4 great empires. Here's our first one. Akkadian Empire. Sargon was the king of Kish, a city-state in northern Mesopotamia. In the 2300s BCE, Sargon began to conquer other Sumerian city-states, destroying their defensive walls and placing them under his power. The conquered city-states were united under the rule of Sargon and became the Akkadian Empire. The empire lasted about 200 years, and at its peak, it covered most of Mesopotamia. Babylonian Empire. Hammurabi, the king of Babylon, conquered much of Mesopotamia several hundred years after the Akkadian Empire fell apart. Hammurabi is best known for the code of laws he created in the 1700s BCE. The Babylonian Empire was not quite as large as the Akkadian Empire. It lasted until about 1595 BCE, when the neighboring Hittite Empire conquered parts of northern Mesopotamia and caused the Babylonian Empire to fall. Now on to page 8. We have already covered our first 2 great empires on page 7. Here is our next 2 here on page 8. A series of empires, 900 to 539 BCE. What later empires ruled Mesopotamia? After the fall of the Babylonian Empire, independent city-states once again maintained control of the region. The Assyrian Empire rose around 900 BCE when the Assyrians began to form and train their army to conquer neighboring areas. The Assyrian army was especially good at siege warfare, using battering rams and siege towers to overcome city walls. The Assyrian capital of Nineveh was north of Sumer on the Tigris River. At its peak, the Assyrian Empire stretched from the Persian Gulf in the east to the Nile River Valley in the west. However, this empire eventually became too large for the Assyrian army to control. When the people they conquered, including the Babylonians, rose up against them in the 600s BCE, the Assyrian Empire fell. Chaldean or Neo-Babylonian Empire. So we found the Assyrians here, and now we have the Chaldean Empire. The Chaldean Empire, also known as the Neo-Babylonian Empire, replaced the Assyrian Empire. Although it was not as large as the Assyrian Empire and lasted only 75 years, it was very powerful. The Chaldean ruler, King Nebuchadnezzar, conquered much of the former Assyrian Empire and made it part of the Chaldean Empire. When conquered peoples such as the Hebrews or Canaan rebelled, the king brutally suppressed the rebellion and forced most of the population into exile. Nebuchadnezzar oversaw huge building projects in Babylon. Workers constructed a double wall around the city to protect it from outside invaders. They rebuilt the city's ziggurat. They constructed the hanging gardens of Babylon, where plants grew on rooftops and hung down over the sides of the walls. The height of the Chaldean Empire came to an end when the Persian Empire conquered it in 539 BCE. The Persian Empires. Persia is a traditional name of the region in the Southwest Asia to the east of the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. This region is more mountainous than the river valleys of Mesopotamia and connects Southwest Asia with South Asia. This area, which is centered in modern Iran, has a distinct Persian language and cultural traditions. Like Mesopotamia, Persian city-states and kingdoms were well organized. Several Persian empires captured Mesopotamia in the ancient times. Under the leadership of King Cyrus II, also called Cyrus the Great, the Persians took control of Mesopotamia, Egypt, and parts of India and Greece in the 540s BCE. As a result, the Persian Empire became the largest empire that had ever been established up to that time. Cyrus and his successors ruled over an empire called the Achaemenian Empire, named after a legendary ancestor of Cyrus. Because of the Persian Empire extended over a large geographical area and included people of many religions and cultures, keeping the empire unified presented some challenges. One of the solutions was the development of a system of laws, standardized weights and measurements, and a network of roads and a mail system. Another strategy to maintain unification was religious and cultural tolerance. In the Persian Empire, people were allowed to live and worship according to their traditions. Famous rulers of the Achaemenid Empire include Darius I, who conquered parts of South Asia, and Xerxes I, who clashed with the Greek city-states. Although people of many religions lived within the boundaries of the Persian Empire, Zoroastrian was the official religion. Zoroastrians believed in one god, Ahura Mazda, who they believed to be good and wise. This monotheistic religion was established by Zarathustra, called Zoroaster in Greek, in the 700s BCE. A central belief of Zoroastrianism is the idea that humans are constantly faced with a battle between good and evil, and that a final judgment will come in which good will triumph over evil. Following the reign of King Cyrus, the Persian Empire flourished until 480 BCE, when it unsuccessfully attempted to expand into Greek city-states. In 331 BCE, the Persian Empire was conquered by Alexander the Great. However, two other major Persian empires held power over the Mesopotamia in the ancient world. The Parthian Empire, from approximately 171 BCE to 226 CE, blended Persian influence with Greek culture and clashed repeatedly with the Roman Empire. The Sasanian Empire, 226 to 651 CE, ruled Persia and Mesopotamia. Art and literature flourished during this time. Each of the conquering empires adopted certain aspects of Mesopotamian culture, but also brought in its own new influences. However, Nebuchadnezzar's reconstruction of the ziggurats shows that religion played an important cultural role in all of the empires. Now, the first four great empires of Mesopotamia took place before the Persian Empire, so Persian Empire should not be one of the four that you use. Hope this helps. See you on Wednesday.